everybody. Peace be still. This is Tosha, and you are tuning into the Supernova Tosha Show podcast, the show that addresses social issues and how it affects our community. Today we're going to be discussing some things that's been happening recently when it relates to aviation. We want to the safeguarding and all the events that's been happening um, as far as air travel. So, in recent weeks, the United States has experienced a series of tragic aviation incidents. Each with unique circumstances and profound impacts, right? I mean, you would agree that some things have been happening. First, let's start with the 29th, January 29th of 2025. A catastrophic mid-air collision occurred over the Potomac River near the Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. So, if you don't know by now, what took place is that an American Airlines CRJ 700 operating as Flight 5342 collided with a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter, and there were 64 passengers and crew included aboard the CRJ 700. And then there was the Black Hawk helicopter that had three soldiers on that helicopter. And in that event, they all perished in the incident. And preliminary investigations suggest that the Black Hawk was flying at an altitude of approximately 300 feet, exceeding the Federal Aviation Administrators, that's the FAA rather, prescribed limit of 200 feet for that route. Concurrently, the CRJ 700 was descending as it was descending at 325 feet rather during its final approach. Now, both aircrafts were under air traffic control guidance at the time, and the National Transportation Safety Board, which is the NTSB, is conducting an ongoing investigation to determine the exact cause of the collision. So I wanted to go into a video that I have. So let's watch this segment to see what's being said about this. So we're going to go ahead and have you view what a former Black Hawk pilot has to say.
Army pilot who has flown Black Hawk helicopters like you in this area around Reagan National Airport told CNN's reporter Haley Pritzky that the Army's flights are routinely planned down to the tiniest detail. This pilot said that based on the risk, the briefer will approve or disapprove parts of the flight plan. That assessment is then run by the unit's commander, then submitted to the FAA. So if it went through all of those levels, the question, of course, is just how could this have happened?
Well, I believe there's three things that happened. If it had just been one, it wouldn't have been an issue. But three different things happened. First of all, they only had a crew of three, and if you're flying a visual flight plan in a crowded airspace like this, they really should have had two crew chiefs in the back of the helicopter to clear each side, as the pilots only have visibility from straight ahead, 12 to 3 o'clock, or 12 from not to 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. So you only have visibility of the front 180 degrees.
Okay. So if you hear what she's saying, that clearly that there was an issue going on there where basically wasn't enough people on board, enough staff, I would say, in layman's term, enough staff on there. There's only one chief in the back, and again, he could only see so much. Had they had two, they would have probably been able to see. Um, so I some of the information that I watched also, it suggested that when they radioed to them about the plane, that the Black Hawk responded that I accept responsibility. So not an expert on this, not a pilot at all. In fact, I really hate flying. I'm going to be very honest. I do not like to fly, but I do it because I like to travel. And so I just go. I mean, when you're in the air, there's really nothing you can do. You just let go, and you just release and let go. You let God. Um, and that's what I do. And I happen to, always find someone that sits next to me, that's very nice because they can see the panic on my face. One thing about me, I wear my emotions on my face, and you can clearly see that I'm not okay, especially during liftoff. Landing, I'm good. In the air, I'm okay, but landing, I'm like, yes, ground. So, with that being said, there was when you accept responsibility, that means you see the planes. So what is being said is that when the Black Hawk accepted the responsibility, they possibly saw the wrong plane, because there was the CR 700 that was coming, that was landed, that was approaching landing. I don't think they saw that one. That's what the experts are saying, that there was another one behind it, and the Black Hawk was possibly seeing that airplane. And when they said we accept the responsibility, meaning that's the one that they saw. And so when you see it, the aerial view, the Black Hawk look, it just, I mean, it just went right into that airplane, just right into it. And some of the comments that I'm reading where uh, there's supposed to be some kind of invention where you have a parachute. So if there's any occurrences that happen in the air, the plane will detach and there's a parachute. I don't think that this would help much if it had parachutes, because the problem is that it exploded. So if you're in an explosion, I'm not quite sure what the parachute could do, because one of the questions I have is that they were able to identify the people so quickly. And my thing is, if there was an explosion, the first thing I questioned, were there any burns to the bodies? And they probably were able to identify them because they weren't in. They were able to rescue them, so it's not like they were in the water for weeks, days and weeks up a time where the water kind of destroys the body. So now they have to use dental records. They probably did use dental records, but they were probably able to visibly see who was who as far as the crew, and identify them quickly. But my concern is, if you have such a huge explosion, would there be burns to the body, and would you be able um, to escape that? So I don't know. Maybe the whole thing about the parachutes with the airplane where it detaches itself, or even individual parachutes as well. I've been seeing comments about that, because when you fly, you have your own individual life jackets. So, with that being said, could there be safety features added where each passenger is able to have their own personal parachutes? But again, you have to understand that this was a sudden impact. It's not like they saw and, towers radioing to them, that, let's brace for impact. It was nothing like that. I don't think the plane saw them at all. And the helicopter clearly didn't see that airplane. So that sudden impact, no one had time for anything. And unfortunately, we know the outcome of this. So on January 31st of 2025, a Learjet 55 operating as MedJet's Flight 056 tragically crashed into a residential neighborhood in Northwest Philadelphia. The aircraft was transporting a young patient, her mother, and 4 crew members, and all of whom were Mexican nationals. All 6 individuals on board lost their lives. The crash also resulted in the death of one person on the ground and injured at least one person. Well, death of one person on the ground and injured one person on the ground, and injured at least 24 others. There were 4 houses that were destroyed and 17 others sustained damage. The FAA, I keep saying FFA, but the FAA imposed a ground stop at Philadelphia International Airport following the incident, and flight recorders have been recovered and sent to Washington, D.C. for further analysis as part of the ongoing investigation. Um, for a clearer understanding of what happened, because I didn't understand what happened here, but it was seems like a 11-year-old Mexican girl uh, came to America for surgery. I think it was spina bifida or something, but she came for life saving surgery here. And, upon headed back home, this tragedy took place. So I do have a second video that goes, that kind of gives you a little bit more of what happened. So for clear understanding, let's check out this report.
Steve, I don't know if you can hear Steve Keeley or on the other side of the street. I just saw we just showed your tweet at that diner.
Jason, that's the story I was telling you. When Dawn, I got off the air with you. I went in there. The police let me through the line. The manager let me in, and he showed me on his phone this piece. And as I said in the tweet, that piece didn't just go through the window and land on a table. It went through the diner, past about 3 booths, by the salad bar, and then hit a diner on the far side of the diner, eating restaurant, and it hit him in the head. I said, was he okay? He goes, no, I think he's hurt real bad. And so there was a big heavy piece of metal that came flying through the diner, and the diner is right next to the McDonald's you're looking at. And so that, you were talking about a half a mile, that as Greg pans to the left, right across all 12 lanes of the boulevard, and then smoke. Greg, come back where I am, and you can still see smoke going up over the AutoZone store, which is at the corner of Cotman and the boulevard. And that smoke is about 3 or 4 blocks deep. And the reason the mayor was staying away from saying numbers is because you saw them. They fluctuated. The officials here on scene, as I reported way back when, were told 6 people on that plane, and then the plane people confirmed that. But the mayor also is knowing the scene there. And she and everybody else out here is fearing that that number and the death toll could grow because of the injuries and maybe fatalities on the ground. And I was showing you and talking about SUVs and trucks that were completely on fire, completely gutted out. And that was almost initially afterward. And I had said, I had come from the 5 o'clock live shot, which maybe was a half a mile from here. I was in that traffic, and it was stop and go traffic. And it's a busy mall. It's a busy time of day. And this is maybe one of the busiest intersections in Philadelphia, the Boulevard and Cotman Avenue. And there's a lot of people eating dinner and so many fast food restaurants you talked about, Jason. And I was in that Cane's Chicken place where I was close to the scene, right by the plaza entrance where all those flames were burning. So that is the fear, that there could be more deaths and fatalities than just on the plane itself because of where it crashed and landed. And that also tells you something. These pilots, even when they know that they are in trouble, they always try to steer it away from any other people, whether they're in the military or whether they're in general aviation. The last thing they want to do is hurt anybody on the ground if their plane is in trouble. That tells you that this plane was in dire trouble when they took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport. So that is an investigation that could take months, but everybody wants to know what happened, because you would think right as a plane is getting ready to take off that it would go through the checkpoints. And it also, when they're going to fly from Philadelphia to Missouri, they're going to load up those wings and those fuel tanks. And that is probably why I was telling you how the heavy smell of jet fuel was thick in the air there around there. And that also helped the flame spread so far through that debris field as that plane crashed right along Cotman Avenue, just past the boulevard. And people are saying it could have been even worse than it already is because of where it could have landed, whether it was in the mall itself with all those stores, or whether it was on the boulevard with all that traffic. So as bad as it is, all you kept hearing from officials on the scene is it's bad and it could have been even worse. Jason, right. Dawn?
And we were hearing earlier tonight from an aviation expert talking about exactly what you just mentioned, Steve, that plane was filled with fuel. It was taking off. It was headed to Missouri with a pediatric patient on board. So it had a significant flight to make to get this patient to Missouri when it just fell from the sky. And I was just curious, when you were inside that diner and you were talking to the people, was the diner packed with customers as well when this piece of wreckage just went flying through the window?
Yeah, that diner, it's a busy diner and it's open 24/7. It's open even on Christmas, but at dinner time, it is crowded. And then it was getting evacuated because people were being told to get out. Plus, everybody in the diner wanted to know what happened. So they were all curious, and they were among the first onlookers who got close and then got told to get away and then got told to move their cars away because there's debris in the McDonald's parking lot and the diner parking lot. And they didn't need to be told there was debris down there because they saw, if they were in there, a piece of the debris fly through the window and across the diner with such force. And then again, I'm going to remind everybody, the air tank from the jet, according to Philly police, laying outside the McDonald's here on the corner of the boulevard. Just that alone, a heavy piece of steel could have done damage for somebody waiting for a bus on the boulevard in the 6 o'clock hour as well. So Governor Josh Shapiro should be here momentarily, and I will give you a warning and a heads up, and I'm sure he'll have the latest information. You can bet he's on the phone with both the White House and the new heads of the National Transportation Safety Board, Federal Aviation Administration, and so forth. And what a busy, bad time for those.
This is so heartbreaking to me. Not only the Black Hawk crashing into the commercial flight, but this also is so heartbreaking because imagine, you give birth to your child um, that has issues, that has health problems, health issues, and where you live, there's no one there to assist, but you find help into another country, so you come to that country. I mean, um, when you think about it on the big scale, so you leave your country, come to another country for life-saving surgery because you're like, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And at the end of it, because I saw pictures of the mom and daughter, giving the thumbs up and smiling so that everything went well. And just for this to happen, it is absolutely heartbreaking. And uh, the families that are, the families that have to deal with this, it's heartbreaking. Just me as a person who I don't know any of these people, they're strangers to me. However, um maybe because I'm an empath, I don't know, but there are millions of people that are leaving comments on all these air issues, that are events that are happening, and you can tell, I mean, they're just in tears and saying how sad this has been for them, and their hearts are heavy. And I've even seen a video of um, the commercial flight, the flight attendant, the male flight attendant. People flew with him, and they made videos of him because he was funny. And I remember one lady, I was reading her comment. She said that she was terrified, and he saw clearly that she was terrified, and there was a seat right next to her, and he just walked over and said, I think I'm just gonna have a seat right here," and looked at her and smiled, and just kind of talked her through what was happening, like, okay, so this is what happening, and this is why the plane is doing this. And she says she wished she would have recorded it. So it is absolutely heartbreaking. And there's more. On February 10th of 2025, a tragic incident occurred at Scottsdale Airport in Arizona involving a private jet owned by Motley Crue's lead singer Vince Neil. Motley Crue is an 80s band that I actually used to like Motley Crue too. But yeah, Vince Neil, the Learjet 35A arriving from Austin, Texas, veered off the runway during landing and collided with a Park Gulfstream 200 business jet. So Vince Neil was not on board this aircraft at the time, and the collision resulted in one fatality and multiple injuries. Emergency responders transported the injured to local trauma centers. the initial report suggests that a possible landing gear failure as a contributing factor. The FAA has initiated an investigation, and the runway remains closed pending further investigation. And I believe in this one, the pilot perished, and 4 people, were hurt. So let's hope that no one succumbs to their injuries, and just that one fatality. So let's talk about in a separate incident, an American airline aircraft collided with a ramp vehicle on the tarmac. So details regarding this event, currently limited, and investigations are underway to determine the circumstances and any potential injuries or any operational disruptions resulting from this collision. Now, all these incidents have raised significant concerns about aviation safety and have prompted comprehensive investigations by relevant authorities. And now the aviation community and the public await the findings to understand the causes, to implement measures to prevent future tragedies. And many people are left hesitant to travel, and they're raising concerns about the overall safety of flying. Amid these tragedies, theories have emerged suggesting that drones and artificial intelligence may be intentionally sabotaging aircrafts. So if you have a theory, go ahead and comment what you think, because there are people that are canceling flights because they're like, we don't know what's happening. There's people that think that we are under a terror attack, or basically that's what's happening. And there's people that saying, there's all kinds of theories. I don't even want to mention half of them, but one of them I've heard terror attacks. This is AI, drones are doing this, and this is sabotaging by this country and that country. So although I am a conspiracy theories, I don't think it's any of these. And I recently flew, and people were concerned, like, what are you doing? Don't fly. Get out of the air. What are you doing? But the thing is, how else am I going to get to where I wanted to go? I couldn't drive where I wanted to go. So, we don't have any concrete evidence that support any of these claims. The growing reliance on automation in aviation has fueled speculations about potential vulnerabilities. So we just have to be mindful of what we're saying, what we're thinking. Although everyone has an opinion, and yes, you're free to give your opinion. But I don't feel like it's any terroristic threats. So I remember, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I've had a conversation with a guy that was a pilot, and he chooses to no longer travel. So he'll tell me, like, his wife and his kids, they're going to Taiwan, or they're going to the Philippines. And, from the United States, those flights are long, and sometimes it's like connecting flights. So you're flying for like 10 hours one flight, then you have a layover, then you have like another, I don't know, 5 hours or 9 hours or something like that. The longest I ever flew was 9 hours from United States to London's Heathrow Airport. And how I deal with that is I pretend that I'm at work. So I kind of cut it into 4-hour shifts. Okay, can I sleep for 2 hours, and then you get a little food, and you get up, you might watch a movie, you walk around a little bit, and by the time you know it, 4 hours gone by. And I'm like, okay, so my last leg is 4 hours. I could do 4 hours, and then I just dissect that last 4 hours, like 2-hour segment. I'll go ahead and sleep a little bit more and watch something, because depending on the airline, and I don't want to call out any airlines, but there's one airline that they really don't have incidents. They just really have, really rude customer service. And sometimes the people on the flight act out of order. But I don't want to call out their name. But when you get on that plane, the plane feels like it's actually falling apart. It's shaking, it's rickety, it's making bang, bang noises. And it's terrifying for me. But they really don't have incidents. But I just can't fly it because it sets my anxiety going up. I try different airlines that I'm more comfortable with, and thus far, I have to say that kind of comfortable with where I'm at. I'm not going to call out their name either because they don't pay me, but I'm pretty comfortable being on their planes. Um, but what I was saying is that I don't, I really, the pilot that I was, he's an ex-pilot actually. So the conversation we had was that, he's saying that there's so many things that happen in the air and that's why he doesn't fly. And I'm like, but you were a pilot. He goes, exactly. I was a pilot and I know what happens. He's like, I've been in the air and engines fail. Sometimes both of them cut off, blah, 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 and all kinds of things happen while you're up there. You as the passenger, you don't know because your flight attendants and your staff, the crew, everybody is so well trained that they keep it away from you. And they do a really good job of it. So for me, I think this is what's happening. I feel like one big incident happened, which was the commercial flight in the Black Hawk when they collided and exploded. I feel like that big, huge incident occurred. And ever since then, all the things that would normally happen, now it's being highlighted. And I feel like that's just how the news is. Like if, one incident occurs, they're trying to, even if it's not a copycat, they're going to make copycat issues out of it. And I think that's just how the news media has always been, that they just try to scare people and they use scare tactics. And now with everything that's happening with tensions growing and AI and this, that, and the other, and terroristic threat and all the political turmoil that's happening too, of course I think that people are adding to it. And I just feel like these are normal occurrences that are happening in aviation at this time, with the exception of the Black Hawk and the commercial flight crashing. Because from what they said, that there hasn't been air collision in years. I'm thinking maybe 10, 15 years or something like that when I was listening to a news outlet. So, as investigations continue, the public remains on edge. And I understand that because, I'm always on edge just flying anyways because I don't like heights at all. So questioning whether these incidents are isolated tragedies or indicative of a deeper systemic risk. Again, I revert back to the conversation with the pilot that refuses to fly because of issues that occur in the air more often than people really actually do realize. And, there's all sorts of equipment that malfunction. And from what he says is this is all normal. So it leads me to believe that these incidents aren't necessarily new. They're just receiving more attention now, especially in the light of the Black Hawk helicopter collision with the commercial flight. So I recently found Captain Steve. He is a pilot on YouTube. Just type in Captain and then Steve with 3 E's. So STEEEVE. He is a pilot, like he flies now, and he's on YouTube. And perhaps, if you hear his commentary, he gave me a lot of comfort. I like listening to him. He gives his insight of what he thinks happened. He gives an explanation of, and he differentiates what took place with each incident that's now coming to light within weeks of each other. So for me, I find comfort, and I like listening to him. So now I follow him. I subscribe to his YouTube channel, and when the time permits, I go ahead and I listen to Captain Steve. So that's Captain STEEEVE. Steve. He's on YouTube, and that's who I listen to moving forward. So, to my loyal family, the Supernova Tosha Show podcast can be heard on these apps such as Spotify, Pandora, TuneIn, and also iHeartRadio. And the goal for me is to be on the top 10 best podcast list to listen to. So please like and share and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And please, I ask of you to spread the word. I am so grateful for your time. Thank you so much for being attentive. I appreciate your patience. Be careful, be safe, and walk good. Peace be still.